Okay, I think we're live. Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today. My name is Killian, I do marketing at Fathym. I'm coming to you from my bedroom. I think we're all kind of in the similar situation at the moment, at home. Pretty unprecedented and difficult times we're in at the moment, so we do appreciate the fact that you're tuning in. I hope you're all healthy and safe. I'm actually based out in Berlin, and Owen, who I'm gonna introduce in a sec, he's also based in Germany. Most of the team is based in Colorado, and you'll see some of them in a bit. Yeah, two Irish people work for Fathym, and we both happen to live in Germany, different parts of Germany. Owen's in the countryside, so he's used to self-isolation already. So, okay, so. Quick note at the beginning, so you might see there in the slide, this little presentation there, Owen will go through in a bit. Webinar at fathym.com. If you've got any questions throughout the webinar, email questions to that. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. So Owen, I'm going to introduce Owen. Owen is our kind of product strategy guy at Fathym. He's going to give a quick kind of presentation to give a bit of context. After that, we'll move into a live demo. And Q&A at the end, yeah, Owen, do you want to take the room?
Sure. Thanks very much for that, and thanks everybody out there for joining us today on our very first webinar. Today we're going to show you how to use Fathym's suite of low-code tools to launch a scalable IoT solution in less than a day. And I'll start off with a 5-minute overview of Fathym's capabilities before Jeremy and Matt will come on and give us around about a 20-minute live demo of our tools in action. And after that, we'll be on hand for some live Q&A. So please do send us any questions you might have to webinar@fathym.com, and we'll answer them when we're done here. So let's jump right in. Fathym is a low-code framework for developers to launch solutions faster than previously thought possible. When we say faster, we really mean an order of magnitude faster. We're talking days or even hours instead of weeks or months. And early users of our framework are already creating sophisticated applications built on the kind of high-frequency, high-volume data that can only reside today in the cloud. And just about all of them struggled with incumbent tools, even the ones provided by large cloud infrastructure providers. After switching to Fathym, they were able to not only complete the projects that they'd previously struggled with, they were able to launch them with fewer resources and way faster than they thought possible. Originally, we built Fathym as a tool set for ourselves, so we could set up and speed up customer solutions. Our mission has evolved since to serve developers of all skill levels who today are often held back by the complexity of today's cloud environments. So whether you're a data architect, a front-end developer, systems integrator, we can make launching your own project a lot less complicated. One big differentiator of Fathym is our business model. We provide access to Fathym via our open core model, just like MySQL, Eucalyptus, GitLab, and many others. Now, that's different from open source. Open source licensing arrangements don't always serve, we find, enterprise developers well, because so often you end up not actually owning what you built. So not only can you combine Fathym with just about any technology out there, your data and your solutions are always yours to keep and to take with you to any cloud or platform of your choice. So what is Fathym exactly? Well, Fathym is a comprehensive suite of tools that can equip developers to launch applications without having to rely on a whole team of specialists just to get your project launched in the cloud. So you have the ability to configure, to build, to deploy an entire IoT or data application with just a team of one. Indeed, included in this suite is the ability to completely configure an entire application environment. You can create emulated data sets, use our best practices to map data schemas. From here, you can then configure all of your data storage and other cloud resources to suit your exact real-time or analytics needs. And as Jeremy will take you through in a few minutes, you can do this in just a few clicks. Best yet, this allows you to test your data ROIs before you commit expensive resources. When it comes to building your application, Fathym connects directly to GitHub, so you can access our open core library. You can also create little bits of reusable code that we call low-code units in our command line interface. And low-code units are modular building blocks of code that can be as large as an application or indeed as small as a data visualization. Jeremy will show you exactly what we mean in just a few minutes. And if you work in Angular, we can provide you with templates to build your web experiences even faster. To visualize your data, you can either leverage your own dashboarding tool, which gives you the ability to set up rules and alerts specific to your business logic, or you can build your own dashboards in minutes using a range of additional tools such as Power BI, Grafana, or Freeboard. And when it comes to deployment, well, deployment is one of the most complicated areas of cloud technology. So we're attacking all the main pain points of today's cumbersome environment. Our tools equip you to configure your application in a much more granular way than ever before. You can provision multiple customer interfaces, instances, and as well as multiple versions of your app. For example, you can use this functionality to deploy different versions of an application to different classes of users. You can easily spend hours each week checking all the boxes and clicking all the little toggles in order to make sure that your app is deployed and running correctly. Or you can rely on Fathym to do this tedious grunt work for you so that you can focus on creating value for your users. Once launched, you can use Fathym to continuously monitor all active cloud services in a single, easy to administer dashboard. So after all this slideware, I think it's now time to look at some actual software. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Jeremy Tomlinson, one of our engineers at Fathym, to give you a live action demo of Fathym's capabilities. So over to you, Jeremy.
All right, thank you, Owen. So like Owen said, I'm Jeremy. I'm one of the engineers at Fathym. I'm going to do the product demo today. The product demo takes 15 to 20 minutes. And if at any time you have any questions, please email webinar@fathym.com. and we'll answer as many as we can in our Q&A portion at the end. So I'm going to share my screen and we can jump into the demo. Okay, first I want to start with low-code units. Owen kind of touched on it a little bit ago, but low-code units are building blocks of code. They can be as large as an application or as small as a visualization, like a map or a chart. And the way I like to think of it is Legos. You know, Legos are individual pieces. You can combine Legos to make bigger spaceships or whatever you want to make, but that's how low-code units are. You can have an individual low-code unit like a map, or your entire application can be low-code unit made out of other low-code units like maps and charts and things like that. Essentially, anything that you want to reuse, you can make into a low-code unit. So what I'm showing here, this is Fathym's IDE, the Fathym Framework IDE, our integrated development environment. It's a browser-based UI for creating and managing your low-code units. It has everything's kind of point-and-click tools for automating your dev process, helping you build business applications and dashboards, and even more, things that we're not even going to show today on the demo. The Fathym Framework, pardon me, the Fathym Framework IDE is automatically registered and configured for you as an individual developer or for your organization when you register. So let's start with the data flow. So this is one of our low-code units. I can click this. It's our data flow manager. This shows the data flows that I've already created. And here's one here. So I want to show how to set this up from scratch. This is one that I set up before the call, so we wanted to have some live data flowing for the demo. But I want to create one of these from scratch so everyone can see how easy it is. So here's a blank flow. The first thing I want to do is drag out a device stream. So this is where my devices are going to connect to. The next thing I want to drag out are my storage options. So cold storage is like blob storage. And one note about all of this is that the cloud infrastructure for Fathym sits on Microsoft Azure. So you can set up a fully functional IoT environment with just a few clicks up in Azure using this data flow tool. So this is cold storage. Now I want to drag out warm storage. Warm storage is like a queryable database. You know, think of SQL Server or Cosmos DB. Hot storage. Hot storage is PubSub. So publication, subscribe. And this allows kind of that real-time component for dashboards. And the final thing I want to drag out over here is a data map. So the data map is going to help us get the data off of the ingest point, the device stream, and route it to these different storage options. So now that I have these pieces out here, we need to make some sense of them. So the first thing I want is this device stream. This is then my data map, and I'm going to do cold storage, warm storage, and hot storage. So individually with these sitting here, they're really not doing too much. You know, they're not connected. There's no intent or purpose behind them. But now what I can do is drag out these arrows between them, and it starts connecting these items. So I'm able to now give purpose to this, and behind the scenes, when I save it and provision it, let's go back over here. Here's my save and deploy buttons. So when I save this, so bear with me. I'm also working from home, like Killian said, and my internet's definitely saturated with my whole family being here. So while this is setting up, one thing that I want to talk about is when we deploy these resources. When we deploy these resources to Azure, everything is available up in the Azure portal. So you can see everything that we've configured for you. It's not something that is tied up in a Fathym cloud or something like that. So something happened here. Let's go back to our data flow manager. Okay, so here's our data flow. So when I click this deploy button, this is going to take probably about 15 or 20 minutes to deploy all this up in Azure. It's doing all the heavy lifting for you. It's about applying all of our best practices to these resources. Notice that I didn't ask, or the flow tool didn't ask me about scale questions or any of that. Out of the gate, we apply some settings that we use pretty much 99% of the time when we're setting up these data flows. And so one note about this before we connect the hardware piece to this device stream. I want to talk a second about ROI. When learning to set up this type of IoT infrastructure up in Microsoft Azure, it took our senior engineers a few months of reading documentation and just playing around and learning how to connect these things together and to get it working just before we were able to set up that end-to-end IoT solution. Today, based on all that knowledge that we have, up in the Azure portal, our senior engineers can set up a data flow in 3 to 4 hours. And that's kind of what it takes. Using our data flow manager, you saw here that I'm able to set up the main infrastructure in about 5 minutes. And then I click a button over here and another 15 or 20 minutes, and it actually deploys it up into Microsoft Azure. This allows me to now have junior engineers on our team set up this infrastructure. It frees up our senior engineers to now work on more important items, and it's been a game changer for our team. It allows us to do more with less resources. So now at this point, I want to hand it off to Matt Jackson. He is going to connect the hardware, which is a Raspberry Pi and a temperature sensor, up to this device stream. And before this call, I registered Matt's device on this device stream, which is an IoT hub up in Azure, and I sent him the connection string. So Matt, I will hand it off to you.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. My name's Matt. I'm a product support specialist here at Fathym. So for today's demo, we did want to have a live data stream. So I did wire up a DHT22 temperature sensor to a Raspberry Pi. This Raspberry Pi here, like Jeremy showed, the data flow manager is provisioning all the resources we need up in Azure in order to get the data flowing from this device to the cloud in order to be analyzed. One of those resources that is being provisioned is the IoT hub. Once that is provisioned, we just need to register this device in order to get a connection string. With that secure connection string, we would go back to the Raspberry Pi. This is actually running a Python script in order to get the data off of this device. We would update that script with the new connection string in order to start sending that data to the IoT hub. The data that will be coming from this device will be the device ID, the temperature, the humidity, and the lat and long of my location. So I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Jeremy now so he can go ahead and showcase our dashboard in order to visualize the data that is coming off of this device.
All right, thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to share my screen again, and we are going to create some dashboards in real time. So again, back to our IDE, one of the other low-code units that I want to use now is our core application builder. I need to refresh here. So again, some of the low-code units that we, by default, include in your IDE is the data flow manager and the data applications. And these allow you to, set up your data flow as well as build your real-time applications. And I apologize for the delay on this. Obviously my internet is kind of slow today. So while this is loading in the background, what I want to show in here is that I'm going to launch our data applications low-code unit. And this is what it is. It's our Fathym dashboard admin. And within our dashboard admin, this is where I'm able to configure services. I can manage my Power BI. And in this, I'm able to connect to my Power BI account and access any dashboard, tile, or report that I've published to the Power BI portal. And I can load those into my Fathym dashboard. I can also stream real-time data. This allows me to connect to Azure Service Bus topics. And in the data flow that we set up, that was hot storage. We're going to create an application here in a second. And then I can also do some user management. I can invite users to my dashboards. I can manage users, add and delete users. I can also control users via roles and permissions to control what they have access to. So let's create an application. Okay, we want to create a new one. So I always have a backup plan in terms of my internet not working too good. And so, it looks like this one's going to load better now. Let's try to create this again. Okay, here we go. So this is an application we're creating. This is going to be the URL path for it. I'm going to save changes. Now I can go edit this guy. Within the content here, I'm going to add my dashboard. So this will be a device dashboard. I'm going to connect to the webinar data stream that we set up. And here's my dashboard. When it initially connects, device data is flowing to here, but we need to be able to see it. So here's the inventory display. And you'll notice this is empty initially. When we are connected to the real-time hot storage, the service bus topic. And so we are not connected to a database. And so data arrives here when it leaves the device. And Matt has the hardware set up to send messages every 60 seconds. And so when another message leaves, boom, look at that. It arrives right here at 11:20. And that's the time, mountain time, that I'm having right now. So let's add a couple more values here. I want this one to be temp. I can choose what display type. This one I want to be vertical. And I'm going to choose the min-max range that I know for this value. Save this. Here's my temperature. These can be dragged around the screen, resized, kind of, they're really easy to use. I'll add another current one. This one will do humidity. Make this one a dial. It's more like a gauge. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Now I'm going to add a map to show that lat long and kind of where my device is on a map. So I don't have to do much to this. It will automatically grab the lat long out of the JSON message. I can choose a map type. If I want to use some of these different maps, I can. For this one, I'm going to use the streets map. I can choose what country to focus on initially. If you're in the US, what state to focus on, what zoom level. I can also change this marker color on the map based on a property evaluation. So in this one, I want to do temperature. If the temperature is greater than 60, I'm going to turn this orange just to kind of show that it's a reasonable temperature. And this allows me to now, looking at my map, if I have this up on a big screen and I have a bunch of devices reporting, that just by looking at this map and looking at the color, I get an indication of what's happening to the data. I can tell that the temperature is over 60 just by looking at this map. So one thing I want to do is apply a theme to this map, kind of getting the color scheme how I want. So here's a dashboard theme that we created. It gives a nice, good black background so that these, the data really pops. Let's see, I'm going to kind of set these up a little differently, to try to maximize our real estate here. So let's see, let's get this guy over here. Now in this portion over here, I want to add one of those Power BI reports that we were talking about. So here's the Power BI display. I can connect to my Power BI account. So this one's Fathym PBI workspace. This will dynamically query the Power BI portal and load my available reports. So this one, I want to do this device data webinar, and I can choose a layout. I can do web or mobile. Up in Power BI, they allow you to set up both kinds of layouts. And the mobile layout works great within the Fathym dashboards, and these look wonderful on your mobile phone. Okay, so here's my Power BI display. I can make it bigger. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Maybe down over here, maybe I want to add another historic. I could maybe do, historic temp, do a bar chart, a line chart, a scatter chart. And I need this to be a capital T. Again, I'm going to adjust the min-max based on my needs. On this particular chart, we have data filters built in. So, I can set a lower limit and an upper limit. And, any value below that lower limit will not be displayed. Same for upper. I could also ignore null values. Okay, so here's my historic temp. I want him to be a little smaller to, meet with this setup. So now on this dashboard, the dashboard setup, it was all point and click. I didn't have to write any code. My junior engineers can definitely do this. And now I want to configure some rules. So when I click this, this allows me to configure rules on this data set. We already have a couple set up. And so in the interest of time, we're going to look at one of these. So this is a temperature rule, a temp check. I can enable it or disable it. I can choose my priority, the type of rule it is. And here's where I set up my message evaluation. Similar to the map that we just set up, I say if temperature is greater than 70, then this rule will pass. And in this case, it's going to email our engineering team. And it will do it on an interval of every 1 hour. And so these rules are deployed to the cloud, and they are running 24/7. You do not have to be looking at your dashboard to have these rules running. So 24/7, if you're monitoring something with your device payload, you can have it email or text you with any updates. So this is one of our data applications. Back over here in our IDE, looks like this finished loading. So now I want to show some other data applications. Here's the dashboard one, that I just showed. So here's the Fathym dashboard. Another one I want to show is our LCU charts. So LCU stands for low-code units. And this is one of our low-code units, and it's a charting application. So this, the initial page shows how to, that this is based, it's an Angular charting and graphing library based on and influenced by NGX charts, another open source charting library. We forked that, and created a low-code unit out of it based on some client needs that we had. And now when we want to reuse this, or if other, developers in our community want to reuse this, this is the help page. This shows how to install it, how to set it up, how to implement it, configuration options and things like that. We can also view some of these charts. Here's a line chart, an area chart, a vertical bar chart. There's a bunch of them in here. These are all included in this low-code unit. And so if you are building a new data application and you need some charts, instead of building them from scratch, you can start here. The other thing I want to point out about these charts is that Fathym leverages node packages and NPM to organize and deploy any previous or current version of your low-code units in the cloud. And Owen spoke about this earlier. You know, I can have different versions of my applications going out to different clients or different user groups or use cases, kind of whatever I need. And this is normally where you need to get your IT or your DevOps engineers involved. But the Fathym framework handles this for you on our side. So another low-code unit I want to show today is this forecast one. So the forecast, again, this one's using the node package, NPM package version 1.1.1. When I launch this, we can see this is, you know, one of that 1.1 version of this Fathym forecast. This is a low-code unit by itself, but it's also made of other low-code units. So this map here in the middle, this map is itself a low-code unit. We can reuse this map anytime we're creating an application for a client and we need a map. We don't have to build that anymore. We can just drag it in here, you know, reference it kind of in the help based on how the help says to set it up, and we have our map. The other piece I want to show now is that we can change the versions of this. So this is currently at version 1.1.1. I'm going to switch it to 0.0.14. I will save the view config. Now when I launch this, and I have to clear my browser cache because browsers they hold on to this stuff. But watch how, you know, as this refreshes now, okay, this looks way different. You know, we can tell the colors are different. You know, here's the other one. This is the 1.1.1 version. You know, it has these red colors. I can search routes. You know, I can select my forecast model. Well, this one's different. This was an earlier version. You know, this is our 0.0.14 version. So, you know, as this was getting built out, this was kind of what it was. And so if we had certain clients, you know, using this version, maybe in their applications, and they didn't want it to change to the newer version, they can reference this particular version and just use this version. So there's a lot more available to show in the Fathym framework, but that wraps up today's demo. You know, I showed how we can set up an end-to-end IoT infrastructure, all using point-and-click tools. We also showed how we could connect a real-time live device today to that IoT hub, stream the real-time data into dashboards, which we're showing over here. And, you know, at this point, I want to hand it back to Owen so that we can review our pricing, and then we'll have our Q&A session.
Jeremy, thanks so much for that. You know, I'm always amazed at how quickly you're able to do that. You just make it look so easy. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but you kind of emboldened me. So we started a little project here because we're all homeschooling now, right? So we've got all the kids at home. And so with my 12-year-old, we started building our own application basically. And now we have basically a Raspberry Pi monitoring our power consumption here in the house. So it's amazing. And then, you know, I'm a non-coder, so I was able to guide, you know, 12-year-old to do this. So it's fantastic. So before we switch to our last topic, just as a quick reminder that, you know, for anybody who wants to put a question to us, just send it by email right now to webinar@fathym.com, and we will answer them as they come in. So with that, over to, as Jeremy referenced, our last topic, which is pricing. And, you know, as a thank you for everybody sticking through with us to the end of this, or towards the end of this. You know, attention deserves reward. And so in these extraordinary times, we wanted to come up with an extraordinary offer. And for all of you on this call, and that is that just for sending us an email to webinar@fathym.com, same one as for the question, we'll get you set up with our soon-to-be-released Unlimited Enterprise Edition for just $100 a month per developer. And not only that, but we're going to grandfather anybody in who, through grandfather clause, which will give you protection against any future price increases, same price, right? And this will give you access to build unlimited apps for unlimited end users. And because basically we really want Fathym to be accessible and affordable for any developer working in enterprise setting. So we'll be pleased to get you guys all set up. We'll be onboarding you one by one, so please just bear with us as we work our way down the list. So continuing on to, there it is again, just as a reminder, webinar at fathym.com to claim this offer. And with that, we'll open up the live Q&A session. So we've already received a few I can see coming in, some great questions. And I'm sure we'll have time to answer quite a few here, so keep sending them through. It looks like the first one is about cloud. So I guess this is for Jeremy. How much experience of using Azure would I need to be able to use Fathym?
So that's a great question. And the good news is that no Azure experience is required. Developers can set up everything that I showed in the demo today, from the IoT infrastructure to dashboards, real-time and historic dashboards, configure the rules, all without any knowledge of Azure. And again, as a little background, when our team got into this, it took us months to dig into Azure and learn how to do all this correctly. And so it's a big win on our side, knowing that you don't need any Azure experience to use the Fathym framework.
Fantastic. I got another question here for you as well, Jeremy.
Okay.
What kind of skill level is this catered to? Is the idea behind this that more junior devs can take on more complicated work?
So yeah, that's a great question also. All levels of developers and engineers can use the Fathym framework. So entry level or junior engineers can do everything that I showed today in the demo. Using our point and click interface, they can set up IoT infrastructure, they can deploy it up to Microsoft Azure, and they can set up real-time and historic dashboards. Middle level engineers can do all that same stuff, but they can also start to modify that underlying code in the low-code units. And that's what one of our middle level engineers did for the LCU charts that I showed earlier. Your senior engineers can do all of that, plus they can build original low-code units. They can start to modify the IDE environment itself so that you can set it up based on your organization needs. And you can create new LCUs based on client requirements. So all levels of engineers can use the Fathym framework.
Great, wonderful. Yet another one for you, and this is a good one as well. Do I need an Azure account to set up and start using your tool?
So this is a great question, especially with that $100 pricing that we just showed a minute ago. Yes, you will need to have a Microsoft Azure account when you come to use the Fathym framework. You get a few keys from your Microsoft Azure account. You enter those into our registration process. We connect via APIs to your Azure account, and any IoT infrastructure that you provision is set up in a new resource group in your Azure tenant, and you are billed directly by Microsoft. And also one thing to note out is that if you don't have a Azure account, Fathym can lead you through that process of setting up an account. And with the Azure account, you get a $200 credit to explore Azure for 30 days.
Great. And wait, let me just see. We got another one here. So here's the question. It sounds like configuration is the basis of how a lot of this works. And here's the question. Am I able to create my own code, and how does that integrate with your tool?
So yes, again, this is another good question. I was hoping this one would come out. So yes, Fathym lets users create their own low-code units, and you can modify the underlying front-end and back-end code. All of the low-code units are open source, and so you can modify them in any way you see fit. They are not stored up in a Fathym cloud. You can push your open source code to GitHub. I mentioned it earlier. We also use node packages and NPM to help as a package manager. And so we're not trying to recreate the wheel on any of that. And even more, the Fathym framework has its own command line interface to simplify the development of low-code units and to help you manage your code, help you manage your continuous integration process, your build and release process. The Fathym framework handles all that for you.
So this I think is probably more of a comment, but there was just a question about whether the some of the images looked a little bit blurry. They're definitely not blurry. I think that's more to do with the video tool that we're using and the internet speeds. But yeah, just log in, send us an email to webinar@fathym.com, and you can verify that for yourself that they're definitely not blurry. I got another question for you though, Jeremy. What happens if I want to move to another platform? With some platforms I've used, the process of migrating to another one can be a nightmare. Is this so this is something I'm always looking for in advance. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yep. So the Fathym framework was built by developers for developers. And new great technology is coming out every day, every year. And so we do not want to be locked into a certain solution. And so your data and your code are always yours. Everything is open source. You know, again, we're using GitHub, we're using NPM. And so nothing is stored up in a Fathym cloud. And so at any time, your data and your code can be ported to other clouds and platforms as needed.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure that if we didn't get to any of your questions in this live Q&A session, what we'll do is we'll take them and answer them one by one individually via email. So please do keep sending them in. Please do also send us, quick email and say, hey, I'm interested in signing up for an account. So after a free trial, you get access to the offer. So with that, I think I'm just going to hand it back to our moderator, Killian. You want to take us through to the end, Killian?
Yeah, just a quick. Oh God, leaned in too much. Just a quick thank you for tuning in. We'll send on the recording of this if you want to check it out again. Maybe the recording might have better resolution, so we can look into that. I will also send on that slide deck as well if you want to check that out and remind yourself of the different components of the framework. Yeah, so I think that's it, guys. Right? I think we've covered everything. Yeah, thank you. We'll be in touch, and stay healthy, stay safe. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.